Hello, everyone. My name is Kristin Snowden. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California and life coach. And this is the webinar where we talk about all things relationships, how to navigate the really messy stuff from shame and trauma and relationship crisis, to how to kind of move our relationship from unhealthy patterns to maybe more healthy patterns, because no one teaches us this stuff. And we kind of have to learn it all through trial and error. And so today we are going to be focusing on kind of big 5 important things that I want you to ask yourself or maybe explore doing after you've uncovered a level of betrayal or you're in a relationship crisis. And again, when I say betrayal or relationship crisis, that can include you've uncovered that your partner has an addiction or a substance use problem or a pornography issue that maybe you didn't realize was so out of control, financial infidelity. And a lot of people that chime in talk about family, that they feel betrayed by a sibling or a parent. So these are applicable as well, but the dynamics are a little bit different when it's a primary versus family relationship. So these are 5 things that you should be doing or exploring or assessing in your life after uncovering infidelity, addiction, relationship crises. So those 5 things really quickly are assessing number 1, is there still a threat happening? Is the betrayal still occurring? And if so, to what extent? We'll talk about that further. 2, do you and your partner have the right support and help available? 3, are you making steps to normalize what's going on in your life and body instead of stigmatizing it? 4, are you taking steps to healing your traumatized brain? And 5, are you taking steps to strengthen your connection with yourself, so your body and mind, and your instincts and intuition? So let's talk about this. Let's dive in. Betrayal trauma, and often it comes out as a relationship crisis, is anytime you feel like you have kind of a teammate in your life, whether it's a primary partner or, again, family or close friend, where there's this understanding that you guys are going to put each other's needs first, that you see each other in a certain way, there's love, there's devotion, you make each other's health and safety a priority, you're considerate of each other. And then there are significant things that rupture that trust. And so there's significant, you can go through many of my videos that talk about what is betrayal trauma, what are the symptoms, what are the shame stories, what are the trauma issues that show up. But it's important to explore exactly what you need to start feeling safe and stable again after something like that rocks your world. Ideally, it would be to do it with your partner or with your family member, but sometimes they are not willing participants and you have to learn how to go it alone. So these 5 things are applicable for that scenario as well. But safety is absolutely paramount to healing and establishing this new reality, this new mind-blowing reality at first, where someone that you loved and trusted, built your life with, allowed into your home and your space, has harmed you deeply. But I want to assure you that you will survive this. You can survive this. And especially if you get the right kind of support around you. So number 1, let's assess, is the threat still there? And to what extent? So betrayal trauma refers to the damage that's caused when you experience betrayal in your primary relationship, and it's damaged the trust, safety, security, and the bond that you have with that partner. You can't really experience true betrayal trauma unless there was this idea that there was this explicit or implicit commitment to help that other person feel safe and secure. Infidelity and addiction are just examples of betrayal trauma where there is a complete destruction of trust, of safety, as they often occur with severe acts of dishonesty, denial, minimization, gaslighting. And again, I have multiple videos, and so does sexandrelationshiphealing.com, that dive into that further. So you can develop language for that, because that is important too. So it's important to explore, and ideally with a trained professional, whether you're still in an environment that is fraught with the dishonesty, denial, minimization, and gaslighting. And why I say it's important to do this with a trained professional, we'll talk about this more, is that you really lose touch with reality of what is healthy, what is safe. I get a lot of questions from betrayed partners and addicts. Addicts will kind of say, okay, I just told her I'm not acting out anymore, her, him. And when are they going to get over it? That's not very reasonable to think things like that, right? So that's showing there's a little bit disconnection with reality and empathy and compassion. And conversely, I've betrayed partners that kind of ask me questions of, gosh, is it reasonable for me to ask to have a tracker on my partner's phone? Because there was so much nefarious behavior where he or she said he or she was here or there and they weren't. And I think I need that to feel safe. So checking that and finding a safe group, professionals, community, et cetera, where you can kind of talk about that and assess what makes sense and what doesn't is really helpful. So be asking yourself following questions. Is your partner following through with his or her commitments to change and or end that harmful, damaging, lying, minimizing, sneaking around, gaslighting behavior? Is there even awareness on his or her end that this stuff has been damaging? Are you receiving the help and support that you need and that your partner needs? Are you receiving validation of your concerns, or do you continue to feel gaslighted? And gaslighting, again, is just when someone continues to deny your reality, for you to say, hey, I'm scared, or I feel uncertain, or I'm in pain. And someone says, no, you're not, you're just being dramatic, or no, you should be over this now. It's someone telling you you need to replace your reality and your experience, and you need to take on mine. Do you even feel safe and supported to even ask for needs to be met? That you even get to speak up and say that I'm scared, or I'm hurt, or I'm angry, or I need this. That's why this is number one, is because as long as you're experiencing incidences of betrayal, lying, minimizing, your partner is completely disconnected with reality, continues all those behaviors, your body will always be wired as if you are in crisis. I use the metaphor as if there's a bear sitting in your living room, ready to strike at any time. So you won't be able to have stable conversations, normal coupleship negotiations about life. There will always be a strong reaction. It'll always be fear-based. It'll always kind of have this life or death undertone to it, because your body does not feel like you have an honest teammate who is speaking on the surface and showing all their cards. So if you're in that state of crisis due to your partner's infidelity or addiction, explore what your partner is doing to repair the situation. Is your partner taking on his or her responsibilities in managing the crisis? Is he or she making necessary appointments, seeking healthy support, such as his or her own therapy, 12-step meetings, hanging around healthy people instead of maybe people who are enabling that behavior? You do you, yeah. Has he or she expressed willingness to change his job, his or her behaviors with his or her phones, social circumstances, engage in more transparent behaviors to support the process of change, right? So I'm talking to this guy, this girl, I'm going to this therapist in therapy. We processed this. I had this memory. This is what's going on, right? There's a transparency. I just did a video recently about signs that your partner is actually changing for the better. And I suggest you take a look at that. That'll help you see if number one is being met. Number two, do you and your partner have the right kind of support and help? So also, I've done a video on the important first steps that you need to take after uncovering betrayal. And just this is, again, generally based on clinicians who do this for a living. We have a very general protocol. You know, Rob Weiss, we have, if there's extreme circumstances going on, lying, sneaking around, abusive behavior, sometimes it's necessary to fully remove them from their life and situation and send them to a treatment center like Seeking Integrity, where there's just, as we like to say, a full personality dialysis, right? Of just you kind of put them in a moment in a special space where they're forced to look in the mirror, and they really work at developing an awareness of how much harm that they've done, because sometimes they just have a lot of defense mechanisms that are really impeding their ability to own the shame-based behavior, the trauma-based behavior, and the willingness to kind of humble themselves and surrender to the fact that they can't do this on their own. So we all, as professionals in this field, have tools and interventions and environments, therapeutic environments that can help with these issues, these obstacles. So looking at whether or not you are surrounded by loved ones and professionals who are stabilizing and safe is an important thing to do. I often hear that people who experience betrayal or uncover their partner's unknown addiction, sex addiction, porn addiction, substance abuse addiction, gambling addiction, can sometimes be re-traumatized going to an untrained mental health professional. So not that they aren't amazing in other areas, maybe working with depression or anxiety, but they might not understand the emotionally manipulative components of a sex addict. And, you know, they can say things to the betrayed partner like, yeah, well, you did stop having sex with him or her. Or, you know, did you tell them that they're pretty or that they're smart? Because they're saying that you just didn't act like you loved them enough. One has nothing to do with the other. What was going on in the coupleship and your coupleship issues are totally separate from the fact that your partner had lots of choices, and he or she instead chose to go out, sneak around, get his or her needs met behind your back, lie, manipulate, minimize, engage in nefarious behavior, etc. Those are separate issues, entirely separate from the coupleship problems. And frankly, until you start stabilizing these issues, these acting out behaviors that were occurring outside the relationship, it's going to be really hard to fix the coupleship marital issues. So certain mental health professionals will understand that, some will not, and you need to be careful of that. And lots of just average family members will also not understand that. You know, I have one of my clients said one time, I felt like when I told my close friends about what happened in my marriage, yes, they would check in, but it would kind of be more like they wanted to know what was going on in the soap opera, not actually trying to check in to see how I'm doing and be supportive of me. They were like, okay, how's the new chapter in this crazy story where it's like, you know, this happens outside of human reality. And it just made her feel almost more like a sideshow Bob, rather than someone who was loved and supported, and that people were sitting there with me in my trauma, you know, hanging in there with this current struggle, rather than, oh my gosh, it's all making me feel like I'm this weird outsider, right? Because that's what trauma does. Is trauma makes you feel disconnected from this world. Like, this makes me too broken and too weird to connect with other people. And so it's really, really, really important that you find your people. And I'll be talking to you about why I also provide groups and workshops. Sex and Relationship Healing.com provides some really great groups and workshops. That's why they exist, because this aspect of recovery is so important. So with help from a support system, you and your partner need to develop rules of engagement that will help you manage the high emotional reactivity that will understandably exist after uncovering addiction or emotional abuse or an unknown, infidelity or porn use, etc. It is understandable that the home is unstable and there are high emotions. That's not the problem. The problem is that there needs to be rules of engagement and structure and a plan developed around it so we can work towards that. So, for example, you need to be asking, when and where do you and your partner discuss adversarial issues that might surface? Do you wait for a therapist appointment, or can you actually talk on your own? Will there be a separation? For how long? What will that look like financially with the kids, et cetera? What behavioral changes must occur to help you feel safe again? Does there need to be a phone tracker, polygraph, regular drug testing, guided supported therapeutic disclosure? What happens to the social media accounts, the financial accounts, the work phone? What do you need to feel safe again sexually, intimately? And this is down the road, right? 'Cause no one would probably feel safe sexually, but does there need to be regular STD testing? How do you feel about sex now? Is it off the table? Those all have to be discussed, and usually it helps to have a mediator, a trained mediator present, such as a therapist. Number 3, have you normalized, or do you and your partner continue to stigmatize what's happening? So the S has hit the fan. Your nervous system is wrecked. Your family life is turned upside down. Betrayal trauma is complex and multifaceted. You have to educate yourself on what's been going on, and so you can understand the emotional and physical consequences that you are understandably experiencing. And the more educated you can get, the more the symptoms will be manageable. You absolutely will have PTSD type symptoms, post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms, flashbacks. A song will send you into a rage, a smell, a look on your partner's face. These are all, they should not be stigmatized. They are normalized. This is what happens when your life's been turned upside down from a crisis. So these are just, so I have videos that will elaborate on the following, but these are just some suggestions about how you can move towards normalizing what's going on rather than you and your partner stigmatizing what's been going on. So know your trauma. Being betrayed is traumatizing. Frank Anderson, who's a well-known trauma therapist, he's a big fan of internal family systems like parts work, says you need to be asking yourself, with the relational traumas, were the messages you received aligned with your gut instinct, or did the reaction to your vulnerability present shaming, criticism, or attacking? Relational trauma is about the pain we carry from the perpetrator or the betrayer reacting to who they think that we are, what they think we should feel, or who they think we should or shouldn't be. The relational crisis and the trauma comes from the way that we feel like we've been taken advantage of, overpowered, rejected, and or alienated. Those are the things that have created deep, deep wounds inside us. Frank Anderson says relational trauma is a violation of healthy, loving connection, true intimacy, and the acceptance of our true, vulnerable selves. And of course, if there is trauma that existed in this, if there's trauma that's existed in the childhood history as well, and then on top of it, you slap this extreme betrayal trauma, you're going to have a lot of trauma to kind of unravel and get through. And we'll be talking about that more in a moment. Know your shame triggers. Again, I have videos on the trauma elements, on what shame is and understanding it and how it shows up in your life, but uncovering a partner's addiction or affair can set off a tidal wave of shame. How could I not have known? Maybe if I was more attractive or more successful or whatever, my partner wouldn't have done this. Then there's shame of what's wrong with me, that I'm still with this person. And then when you find yourself really struggling with your emotional reactivity, it's like, oh, what's wrong? Oh, maybe he or she's right. Maybe I'm messed up. I'm too broken. So you've got to explore these shame voices, identify them, figure out where they came from, and filter out the guilt versus fear versus shame components. And again, I have a video on that. That's just saying understanding your shame. And I'm going to give you a few examples at the end of this lecture of how to start working on that. Help your partner understand what you're going through. I have another video called A Message to the Addict or Betrayer. That's really just meant to help create empathy and compassion for the betrayed partner so they can understand what their behaviors and choices have done outside the relationship, how it's harmed the betrayed partner. Hopefully, they're also seeing a trained mental health professional or going to 12-step meetings or around an educated community that can also help them understand how their behaviors have harmed another person. I always suggest that you use that format when you're trying to communicate with someone of, when you say or do this, the story I tell myself is fill in the blank. When you have this behavior, when you don't return my phone call, when you come in late, this is the story I'm telling myself. You don't love me. You don't respect me. You're not going to get any better. I'm stuck in this life with you and it's miserable. And that can help communication get a little bit better. It helps your partner also understand what you're going through, what goes through your body and mind when they behave a certain way too. Really helps understand the causation, correlation type behaviors. And then also give yourself some grace. Your nervous system is a wreck. It is the definition of like your body storing something as trauma is when your nervous system isn't sure you're going to make it through it alive. It's completely overwhelmed. It feels powerless. And it doesn't even know when this is going to end. There's no time of like, okay, I'll get over this in a year, or this will be better in 6 months. When all these things come together, it locks your system into like a constant fight, flight, freeze, fawning state. So give yourself some grace that essentially your body has to spend more time in that back lizard brain, just figuring out how to keep you alive. So it really struggles with the higher functioning choices of like, remembering when your kids need to be picked up from school, or remembering that project that you had to get done at work, or remembering your keys to the car. And so again, you can kind of shame yourself a lot when you're falling short in these areas, but if you normalize it, then you won't stigmatize it. Okay, number 4, work on healing your trauma brain. So I hope that I've established at this point that betrayal is trauma. There's lots of videos you can watch that'll help you better understand that. But you on your end have to do very specific work. And it's not just talk therapy, by the way, that will help you unwire a very traumatized, wired brain. It's very important for your neurological, physiological reactions. And if you and your partner start moving in a healthier direction, you have to kind of rewire your brain so that you don't react from that kind of crisis, caveman lizard brain setting that it's grabbing hold of because this crisis was so scary. It doesn't want this to happen to you anymore. And it's just going to work from strong protective spaces, strong defense mechanisms. Some of the types of therapy that I've found to be helpful is EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. There's some neurofeedbacks are helpful in downregulating. I've been currently or recently using the internal family systems, which in a nutshell, that's just parts work. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Those can all really help you. Dialectical behavioral therapy, somatic experiencing, meditation, group work. Actually, group work does change your brain, and it can rewire a traumatized brain. So it can, I know it feels very counterintuitive, but you need to seek out a group of healthy, safe people. So let me just give you a quick idea of what some therapeutic work might look like. It doesn't have to look this way. Lots of therapists approach it differently. But when you are seeking therapy to work through your trauma, it's to first kind of validate and explore the wounds of being a betrayed partner, explore the profound impact, emotional consequences, physical consequences. Therapists can help you identify and express the emotions and thoughts related. And then often what they can do is kind of start exploring those parts, those wounded parts. So this is kind of like an internal family systems model. In like saying, well, I'm so angry. This is all angry at this situation. And an internal family systems would say there's probably a part of you that's angry, right? Because there's a part of you that's staying in the relationship. So is maybe curious also, that is your partner capable of healing, or another part that, another parts that may be scared and feels unloved and rejected. So really kind of understanding all the different stories and parts that are being flared up and triggered by this current day betrayal. And then you kind of assist that partner in unblending is the word that they use, but kind of separate out current hurt and pain, those childhood wounds that, it makes me feel when my girlfriend looked at me when I told them that betrayed partner story. I felt like I was a sixth grader being an alienated odd man out where, I was Susie the weirdo. And, so talking really a lot about the current stuff that's being triggered, the past history that's also underlying all that triggering and trauma and shame, and really unraveling all of it. Because the goal, which is correlated with the final thing, number 5, is to get you to reconnect with and believe in and develop confidence and connection with what internal family systems calls self energy. You can call it whatever. It's like this is who I am. This is my being. This is this part of me that makes me valuable and whole, which is like this part of myself that always has a space where I'm curious, have clarity, have confidence. I feel calm. I feel compassionate. I feel courage. I feel creativity, and I feel connected. Those all might feel like very difficult things right now. But the idea is that if you really clear out a lot of the trauma, a lot of the shame, that you will feel a strong self-connectedness and have all those pieces in your life. So that brings me to number 5, the last thing, which is you have to work to rekindle or reconnect with yourself and your intuition. The very nature of betrayal trauma involves your partner manipulating you, telling you that your reality isn't your reality, lying to you so often and over a long period of time that it can really destroy your connection and definitely your confidence in your connection with what we kind of call our instincts and intuition. And again, there's so many different names for it, but it's just that part of you that's like, feel like something's off. This doesn't feel right. I don't like this. Or, yeah, this does feel right. This feels like something that I need or I like or I have a passion towards. We lose that. And a lot of professionals who don't understand this type of work don't realize that a person sitting in front of them has completely lost themselves because they've been gaslighted and emotionally manipulated so much. So they'll say like, oh, what's your favorite dessert? And they'll be like, I don't know what my favorite dessert is. What do you want in life? I don't know what I want in life. And it's to an untrained eye, you're not sure what to do with it. But I instantly know, wow, this person must have been in a very abusive relationship, that in order to stay in that relationship, they kind of had to completely cut off all of that connection to themselves, to their instincts, to just stay present in a very uncertain, misaligned, incongruent space and kind of keep living their life. So when the crisis has been uncovered and you work towards healing, your intuition has to be reconnected with. And it's important to help you feel safe again. It's an imperative part of your recovery and treatment. So rekindling your intuition and instincts is complicated. Some of it is, I feel like, parts work, that shame resiliency work that I mentioned, trauma treatment. And I also think when you start speaking things out to a big group of healthy other people, they kind of help reinforce, no, that's not unreasonable. No, that makes sense. Yes, I would ask the same thing. Well, why do you feel weird about that? And human interaction with safe, healthy people kind of helps you reconnect what's going on inside your body. So first, you're not going to be good at hearing your intuition, but you have to kind of continue to try to speak it out. I have here, knowledge is power. The more you educate yourself and your partner during your relationship crisis, the more navigable and hopeful the process can get. You have to ask for help. You have to seek out professionals and safety from others. And you also have to take steps to reclaim your life. What brings you joy? Are there aspects of life that you once loved that you maybe lost due to betrayal or ensuing crisis that you want to reconnect with? A spiritual practice, spend time or reconnect with other certain people, a passion, taking care of your body, self-care in certain ways, music, other passions, etc. And again, find a small group. I'm biased, partly because I love working the workshops in small groups, but I feel like that's where the magic happens. And I'm going to just close with saying I have my Life Anonymous group that's going to be starting. There's a few more days left where I have an early bird registration where you can use the code LA25 and you'll get $25 off. But this group's going to be a 10-week group. So it's a long group, but we cover all the elements of just generally what the 12-step concepts are about, but it brings in really enriching subject matter around all the stuff that I'm talking about. Healing trauma wounds, exploring shame stories, exploring these parts of yourself, these childhood wounds and how they show up in your current life, healing and stabilizing a nervous system that's probably just fraught from so much deception and crisis, boundaries, and also building and developing camaraderie with a very small group of people who've struggled in the same way you have, who can listen and connect and develop a support system around that. So you're always welcome to email me, Kristin Snowden, MFT@gmail, if you have any questions. But go ahead on my website, kristinsnowden.com, click on live workshops, and you'll see the Life Anonymous workshop registration with a bunch of information there. And that's it.